Here we go. Let's get into Black Facts. Welcome back to Black Facts. Today's episode will be talking about the Black community and mental health. I'd like to welcome our guests, Shor Denny, Shelby Beddingfield, and Jazmine Carter. Welcome back to another episode of Black Facts. This month, July, is Mental Health Month, and I'd like to welcome our wonderful guests today. We have Shor Denny, we have Shelby Beddingfield, and we also have Jazmine Carter. These ladies are going to be providing their testimonials and stories as it relates to mental health. So I'd like to welcome them. Welcome you all. I want to welcome you all. Please tell me a little bit about yourselves and what do you all do for fun?
My name is Shor. As you said, I am the CEO of an organization called Community Now, and we deal with mental health and wellness. And the things that I like to do for fun, I like to dance, I like to read, I like to sing, I like to work out. I like being active.
Wonderful.
My name is Shelby. I usually go by Shelby Lynn. I'm just a college student right now, so, figuring out life, basically. What I like to do for fun, though, is I like to do photography and videography.
I'm Jazmine, and I kind of do a little bit of everything. So I crochet, and I wire wrap crystals, and yeah, this is all recent. I do tarot as well. All of this as streams of income and practices, but it's also been a tool for me to navigate through my trauma as well. So it's kind of nice to use this platform to talk about that a little.
Yes, thank you so much for giving us a little bit of insight about who you all are and some of your interests and what you like to do. Can you guys share with me, growing up, what did you know about mental health?
I guess I'll start. I knew about mental health pretty early because, wow, we're gonna get deep. Okay, I could keep it surface. I grew up in therapy and I grew up on medication. I grew up diagnosed with ADHD, so I was taking medicine at like 6 years old all the way through high school. So yeah, I was definitely in therapy every week, seeing a therapist and a psychologist. And so once I left high school and started making decisions on my own, how I want to navigate through all of the trauma, I, for a second, completely shut off the idea of therapy and completely shut off the idea of reaching out for help, and ended up coming right back to it, but in a whole different way. Finding a therapist, like I've been specific about what I want. I have to have a BIPOC. Like I need someone who is a person of color so that they, at a minimum, understand like all that I'm about to really open up and just let you guide me in healing. It's not like let you tell me how to live my life, but just this is something that I haven't really faced, and I need a space where I can do that and open up and be vulnerable and surrender.
Ooh, I like that word, surrender.
It's a new one for me too.
I haven't learned it. So.
For me, growing up, despite my mom being who my mom is, I feel like I was very clueless for like a good part of my young childhood until it started. My mom has mental health issues and they started to affect her physically. And I think at that point, I kind of realized that there are things that can happen with your brain that affect how you are. The irony is that I was diagnosed with gifted, didn't know what that meant until I was like 16, found out I have ADD. She rejected the whole medicine thing, so I just grew up with all of these weird issues that I thought were normal, and I'm still figuring them out today. So I kind of was clueless despite the fact that I was living with mental health issues growing up.
I didn't, I'm the old one here, so we didn't know anything about mental health when I was a child. I was labeled high strung.
Mm.
I was a high strung child. That was what my issue was. So, of course, it was my issue, uh, not the trauma and the harm that was put upon me as a youth, but that I, was responding to. But it was me. So I didn't really know anything other than it was my fault and I was high strung.
Wow. So I just heard you, Jazmine, and Shore talk about how, it was childhood trauma that started it all. And Shore, you saying that it was put upon you, that it was your issue. It wasn't that something that happened to you. They were looking at you like it's you. It's, it's you, it's your issue. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. How can we, I know this is kind of like diving in, but our children, how can we safeguard our children if we identify that they're struggling with some mental health challenges, or if we're aware that they've experienced some type of childhood trauma?
Yeah, you've said a mouthful.
I'm sorry.
Raising a child, having mental health issues, and understanding it, learning about them after I had my child or while I had my child. Um, there's not a lot that we can do. These are independent journeys that we are on, and we have to learn how to cope with our lives ourselves. So, as I had to deal and learn at my old age, my daughter here was able to gain concepts that she didn't even know were coping skills that she used to deal with as she. So for me, I would say teach them how to cope, teach them how to problem solve, and that will aid them in all of the obstacles and challenges that they have in there. They might not know it at the time, but they will be building those defenses and resilience through those two things, coping and problem solving.
Okay. Okay. So let me ask you, when was the first time you experienced signs and symptoms?
Mhm. Well, I was diagnosed with gifted at third grade, 7, but I was hyperactive and all of that since birth, basically. I have sensory issues, all of that. So I already had that stuff. The first time that I experienced anxiety or kind of realized that I might have that was about 13.
She was unstoppable. You couldn't stop her from moving. From almost like the time she could walk, she bounced and moved and popped and banged. I mean, when we ate dinner, she wouldn't sit. There was nothing that we could do to get her to sit still. Other than, I mean, I could have harmed her. I could have yelled at her. I could have screamed. I could have made her sit still. I could have done that. But I felt that she needed that movement, so I let her move. So she was always, always, always moving, always moving.
And you, Jazmine, I know you were saying that you were early on, you were in therapy as well as on medication. So when did you first, I guess, when did you first have your realization like, oh, okay, I'm different than others?
You kind of like always know that you're different, it's just
Yeah.
sure, right? Literally, your story is my story. Gifted, hyperactive, and like you're forced to feel like that's a bad thing, especially when you're young and you're just super active and always moving. For me, every time I look back at it, I don't look at it as a mental health thing. I'm spiteful only because I was told as a child, you're too active, so we're gonna put you on this medicine to calm you down or so that you can focus. And it's just like, you're telling me that I'm gifted, but we have to suppress my gifts. Okay. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't even think I answered your question. It was just, this is so juicy.
That's
It feels good to like know that I'm not alone. Literally, my
yes.
story is your story, and your story is my story. Did I
Can
answer
I
your question?
Can I loop back to a question you asked Shore earlier about how to help children that have mental health issues and stuff like
Yes,
that?
yes, please.
Yes.
I think that something that was absolutely like fundamental in my upbringing was the fact that she didn't try to suppress my ADD or anything like that. She denied the medicine when they tried to give it to me, and she just kind of let me do whatever I was doing. And for a while, I grew up, like I said, I didn't even know what gifted meant until I was like 16. So I grew up thinking like I'm just like a normal person. I didn't think that I had to act any kind of way or suppress what I was doing. And I think that that has seriously helped like me as a person developing instead of hurt me.
I
But I
literally
love that
changed
touch
the
on.
world for her. I did everything to ensure she could move. Almost, so yeah, it was interesting though. I didn't know I was doing it though. I just
But
didn't.
sure, do you feel like you had that insight because you too had been diagnosed with, a mental health issue, so you kind of, you know what I mean? You had already experienced that growing up and you didn't maybe consciously or subconsciously didn't want to, impart the things maybe that had been done to you onto your child.
I would say yeah, and I'd say that to what Jasmine I think is saying. It's like no, right? Let's just say no to all of these conventional things that these people said to ensure that their lives were better, right? Make you sit there and sit and be seen and not heard. The things that I had to live through as a child, I refused to put that on my child. It's like, no, we can't continue to let this continue to. People are like, oh, it's the way that I was brought up. So wrong is wrong. Just because you had to suffer doesn't mean that we got to make everybody else suffer through it. So yes, I felt that it was wrong for them to make it my fault, and I didn't even know that until I was 50. So but I knew that it was that I was harmed my whole life because it was my fault. Because I second guessed me, I doubted me, I belittled me, I hated me, me because of what they said about me then. So I just don't believe that we should put that on fellow human beings. And for Jasmine, that's exactly what happened to her, and that's her whole freaking gripe right now is that they didn't let her be. I mean, well, not your whole gripe, but I'm saying that's what you just said, that they stopped your freaking gift.
That's why, okay, I would love to touch on that question too, because I am now married and I am definitely considering children. And I live in a home with my husband's family as well. And so I've been with their daughter and their son since they were like 8, 9 years old. But when you're in a household full of children, you kind of become their caretaker too. You're a part of that. And so with her, I knew that I didn't want to create a space. I'm talking about his younger sister, she's like a daughter to me, but also my best friend. And that's kind of how I cultivated our relationship. And I know I'm going to cultivate the relationship with my seeds as well. It's just starting from a place where I just simply want my seed to be and to understand that this is their journey. And it's just like, it's going to be exactly what it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? I'm probably gonna like not explaining, you know what I'm saying? It's getting a little philosophical, but that's been my journey. That's how I've been able to transmute energy that was meant to keep me down. You know what I'm saying? I think it's so beautiful. And I didn't mean to say sure. Is it Cherie?
Okay.
Shelby.
Shelby. Shelby, I meant to say that I resonate with your journey as well. And I think it's so beautiful that you were brought up in a space because that's what we need. Every generation, every like new lot of children that are being born, that's our future. That's going to build literally what the seeds that we've planted, that's going to nourish the seeds because they've already been planted. You know what I'm saying? With your daughter, with you, we're changing the narrative. And in order to continue to change the narrative, it has to span past us. So
Right.
my intent with my children and growing is just to let them be and let them grow and let them know that everyone's different. They're unique. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. So, okay, now we're in the midst of, well, we were in the midst of COVID, and now it seems like with the Delta variant and with everything coming back around full circle, how are you living with your mental health, issues in the midst of COVID? Has it impacted you at all, or no?
For me personally, I guess it did impact me in the way of after a while you get tired of just seeing the inside of your house, right? That drives anybody nuts, even if you
Right.
don't have mental health issues. But as far as my existing issues go, I don't think that it affected me that much. I think that I was in a house with this lovely lady who knows way too many coping mechanisms, and that if I did happen to have something happen, she was just like, Shelby, girl, you're tripping. Like, just go count 5 things that you can see, 4 things you can feel, like calm down. So I was okay.
I was in heaven. Before COVID, the concepts of my organization and what I believe in were not being heard. That coping and self care are the most important thing. I've been fighting for 10 years for people to cherish themselves and to see the value of our minds and our bodies. And COVID made that happen. COVID made everyone stop and take a look at themselves. Before COVID, we thought that you had mental health, you were born with mental health, but you couldn't keep it. If you lost it, you had to go to somebody to get it back. Well, now with COVID and with mental wellness and everything that's popping off now, we know we can maintain our own mental health. I now have control. So with COVID, to me, what it did is it brought awareness. I think we're in a mental health like a renaissance, an awakening, because we now have power. I now have the power of my brain. I now can control my emotions. Well, not control, but I mean, I can work with them. I can maintain them. And I now have that ability to problem solve and understand coping skills that I didn't know existed, prior to. So I think that it did a lot for humanity. I think it stopped us in our tracks and it made us stop being the gods that we thought we were, right? We thought we were gods, right?
No, absolutely, sure. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, we thought we were in control of our being, ourselves, and yeah, COVID, like you said, whether you had a diagnosis or not, you had to go within and you had to identify if you didn't already have coping skills. You had to learn, how do I isolate at home, and how do I, navigate through everything that we're going through. How do I work? How do I go to school? How do I manage my mental well-being in the midst of this environment? So you're absolutely right, Shelby and Shore, as far as saying that, all of us had to take a moment, right? And do a reassessment of, who am I, and am I okay? And if I'm not okay, do I have the necessary tools to, cope and be okay?
Jasmine?
Said it all. Like, that was literally the theme. For me, I love being at home. So it wasn't really, I just don't like being told what to do. So like, to be told to be at home, now it's just like, okay, I want to go out. But other than that, I did experience just points of self-development, self-growth. I don't like to look at them as negative points, but I did reach points where there was some self-actualizing, and it's just like, wow, these are areas that I really didn't show up for myself. Like, it's you again, like I'm too busy, like Shore said, I'm too busy focused on my healing and reclaiming my power in all sense of the word, that I'm just here for the journey. I'm here for the lessons. I'm here for the challenges. I'm here to grow and understand. So when COVID came, it was just a catalyst for me to bet on myself completely and fully. And so I was able to take a leap during this time, and it's been beautiful. It's been amazing.
Well, Shelby, you mentioned something about having a support system. You talked about your mom, being your support system. So tell me a little bit, give me a little bit more information about, what does it look like to have a really strong, good support system?
God, it's life-saving. So when I
Wait
got
a minute, let's stop for a moment, because Like that. No, seriously. Like that struck me. You said life saving. That's life saving. So many people don't have that. So let's like, let's honor that. You said it was life. That was the first thing you said. It was
Wow.
life saving. If only everyone had a support system that they could say was life saving. So help us unpack that. Let's talk about what does that look like to have a life saving support system.
When I went to get diagnosed for anxiety and panic disorder, I went and I told the lady like everything, and she was like, you've got generalized anxiety and all of that." And then I was like, "Okay, cool. So what do I do now?" And okay, basically, I had more coping mechanisms than she knew. I told her about the 5 4 3 2 1 thing, and at that point, I was like, you know what, I'm out. Like, I'm leaving because I wasn't like having any immediate struggles or anything. I just wanted the diagnosis to be able to be like, okay, I have this and I can work on it. But when I realized that I had learned more from my mom just living with her, not even her being like, you have to do this when you have anxiety, I was like, I've got like so much of my own coping mechanisms and all of that now. And then I also have athletic asthma, so it's not like something that affects me very much, but sometimes I get short of breath and I'll think that it's my asthma. I moved to New York for college and I was having moments where I would just feel like I couldn't breathe and I would sit down, and I casually mentioned it to my mom one day and she goes, "You're having anxiety attacks. You need to breathe and bring your mind back. Even if you don't feel like you're panicking, your body is panicking." And just being able to have someone sit there and go, "You're having an attack," is so helpful if you don't know that you're having an attack. And being able to teach you how to like handle it or give you methods to calm yourself down.
Well, thank you. I think that that's very important to just hear what it looks like to, have a support system. Jazmine, I don't know if there was anything you wanted to share on that topic. You kind of looked like you wanted to say something.
I'm good. No, I loved hearing that other side of the spectrum of things.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you this, Jasmine. How has living with your condition shaped who you are today?
Um, I just like to think like it made me a boss, you know? Like it definitely it made me a little bit rough around the edges, definitely rigid, but I was able to learn myself, and I'm still learning myself and still having to come to the awareness on my own, and just being patient with myself however I show up at any moment. That's just been the medicine for me. And I have a super supportive husband. Like that was key for me as well. And we've been together for 6 years. So this has been a solid foundation for me to feel safe and to feel secure and to open up and be vulnerable with him. And he's vulnerable with me. And it's been fruitful. So I can't even sit here and act like I'm alone now. You know what I'm saying? Like I have all that I need.
Yeah, support.
It's beautiful to hear, how a support system that it's possible from jump, from the womb, like
Yeah.
to give that, to receive that, and it to be like an ebb and flow situation. That's beautiful to be here to witness that relationship.
Yeah, well, it's beautiful to hear Shelby say that she had it from the very beginning, but it's
Exactly.
beautiful too, Jasmine, to hear that you have now found it, you know?
We can all get
And
it. We can all get it.
yes,
I'm not
yes,
here.
yes. So there's hope for those that are out here that are watching, that may not have a support system to be able to know that, it's possible that they can find that their village or that one person that will lift them up and accept them for who they are and be there, and be like you said,
Absolutely.
vulnerable. I think that was a key word too that you mentioned, being willing to be vulnerable. So sure, um, there's some misconceptions that I want to ask you specifically. What would you say you would like to dispel about mental health issues?
First thing would be that we're weak, right? That would be the first thing. Um, 70% of America has some type of a mental health issue because 70% of Americans have had trauma, right? If you look at adverse childhood experiences, if you've had to deal with anything adverse in your childhood, you most likely have something going on, right? That mental stressor that you've had to try to learn to cope with. A lot of the things that we deal with, we do not cope with in a positive manner. We learn our coping skills from our family, from our sisters, from our friends. So we end up coping by drinking, fighting, cussing, gambling. When coping is an action word, right? But it means problem solving, right? It means building your self skills, your self care, so that you can endure through the challenges. Everyone has challenges. It's something we need to really understand. It's how we get through them. Healthy. How do we eat? How do we monitor our whole body? So for dispelling, the first one again is that we are weak. The second one would be that it's rare because most of us have it, and if you don't have it now, you're going to have it later, or maybe you had it before and you don't have it now. Somewhere in our lives we have needed some mental health support. It should be just as important as our physical health. If you feel that you have a strained muscle and you would go to the doctor for that strained muscle, when you have been overwhelmed with stressors, you should go to a doctor for your mind. It should be the same. I think that what another thing is that we are two sides, mental and physical, right? We can put that spiritual in there. You can throw that in the middle, but we are two sides and they both work together. So if one is slipping, the other is slipping. So if our health is failing, our mental health is failing. All of us out there with diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, watch yourself, monitor yourself, because your mental health is not well. I don't care what you think. You should be looking for some type of support, some way to lift that depression mostly and that anxiety of the next doctor appointment.
No, I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate you saying that the physical and the mental go hand in hand. You can't separate one without the other, right? And if you have physical challenges, most likely you're dealing with mental health challenges. I think that too often we want to, believe that they don't exist, they don't coexist, I should say. If you talk to somebody with, a diagnosis of diabetes, they'll be, oh, I'm fine. I just have diabetes. No, there's some mental health challenges, that you're experiencing as well. So thank you, Shore, for saying that, and also dispelling that, it doesn't mean that you're weak, you know. That's I believe that's the greatest misconception, that you're somehow, there's a defect, right? And somehow it makes you weak. But really, to be able to effectively address and move forward in your life, you have to be very strong and very resilient. And I
Jasmine
think
is.
you have all of you have shown that this evening, that you are very, very strong and very resilient women. So let's talk about, what are some things you do to help improve your well-being?
I guess it starts with me. So some recent practice. This is again because of COVID. I am huge into my spiritual journey. However, a lot of people think that there's a lot of gatekeepers no matter which journey you choose. So they automatically assume you're already doing your yoga, you're a Reiki master, doing meditation on the top of the hill. Like this gets deep quick, and you're already diving in on very real like trauma. You know what I'm saying? And so this is new for me in the way that I'm doing it. And so I knew I needed to create a routine. I needed a self-care ritual that covered what I wanted to get done. I kept writing it down on my goal list. I kept saying this is something I want to practice. It'd be so nice if I can fit this time in my life so that I can have this time for myself to really dive in like I've been saying I want to, a resolution. And so I learned about micro goals, and I learned about this acronym called SAVERS. And it's just silence, affirmations, visualizations, exercise, reading, and scripting. So you're doing everything from meditation to journaling to getting your body active and physical. So it was covering everything. And I decided, well, I was able to do that for a month. And I'm like, okay, this feels really nice. Every time that I go through this completely all the way through, I started challenging myself. I love challenges. It's like, okay, we've got that goal going. How can we grow on that goal and make it a little bigger? And so I added some practices and personal classes that I wanted. I'm like, if you have time to be stressed, and I haven't been diagnosed with anxiety or anything like that, but I also have not been inside of an office in a very long time. I literally just started therapy again. That's another thing that I recommend now that I'm older and I've, decided to be a rebel with no cause, you know what I'm saying? And having to learn the hard way. I've learned to come to those things that someone else could have very well easily told me if I allowed them to hold space for me. So therapy is something that I recommend. Just a moment of silence. I only meditate for 5 minutes a day. I told myself I need small goals first. And if I show up on those small goals, then I can be the guru on top of the mountain, just able to space out and chill, and my mind goes a mile a minute. So it'd be beautiful to just give myself that space and allow myself that time, like Shor was saying, take back my power. That's the way I do it.
Okay, we were talking about taking back our power. So how do you prioritize your mental health?
That's my ritual is a must. It's not something that I play around with. No, every day I get up out of bed early and I make sure that I set aside the 3-4 hours for myself to do this. I've moved everything around so that I have time to do this. So this is not just something that I'm playing around in my life. Every day I'm up, I'm doing meditations, I'm affirming things, I'm doing my visualizations, I'm exercising, I'm moving my body, I'm getting outside, breathing real air. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It sounds so simple, but it's so vital. It is so vital. And when you do it, you feel how good it feels. And it's just like, why am I not doing this more often? So that's why I moved everything so that there's no excuse. I have no excuse. I've literally freed up 4 hours of my time to do everything from get out of bed to look good for myself, So that's my little magic. It's just self-love.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yes, self-love. Very practical. And everybody can do it.
Yes.
Shelby, Shor, did you want to share?
I guess mine is kind of similar to Jazmine. The whole spiritual thing and all of that. I do candle magic, and whether or not you believe in magic, candle magic is getting candles that have certain colors that mean something and then lighting them, and you're lighting your intentions. So when I light a candle, I can look at this candle and I can go, like, even if I leave the room and I come back, I see it burning and it reminds me that this is a goal that I have that I am working on. And it's just something, little things like that. I'm not consistent, so I applaud Jazmine for being able to do something like consistently, because I cannot. But when I feel like I need a little pick-me-up or something like that, I get little rituals of my own like that I can do sporadically. And that helps me to kind of remind myself what I'm doing and what I'm trying to focus on.
I treat my mental health as if, and I hate to say it like this, but as if I had a disease. I treat it as if it were, say, diabetes. It's the first thing that I think about. In everything that I do, I make sure that I am not overdoing anything that's going to impede on my mental wellness. I ensure that my home is in peace. I do that through, we burn sage, dragon's breath. We burn dragon's blood, a few things in our home. I'm getting deep here, but I ward my home. and I make it a place that is peaceful. So I try to stay in peace. So that means that like I'm an entrepreneur. I do some really long hours, right? I can have some really busy months, but I keep in mind that I can only go to a point. There are friends of mine they bag on me because when there's a holiday, I take the holiday, right? If there's a Because these are my mental wellness days and I'm very serious about them. They're like, oh, I'm going to work through. Well, you work through that, and when you have that heart attack, baby, I'll be at the hospital with your flowers, but I am going to chill. So I think, putting what is most important first, which is my wellness, which is the very first thing that I think about. It's the most important thing, and it's always on my mind of how I am going to be mentally well. So, not letting problems get big. I try to do problem solving so that I don't have stressors. I problem solve people. Don't have negative people in your life. Minimize them and distance them out. So everything, truly, I believe, I think almost everything in my life I have set around my wellness.
That's wonderful. No, that's wonderful. And like you said, I think you said it earlier, it's everyone has their own journey. Everyone has their own journey. And they have to plot that course and figure out what works for them. Jazmine has a consistent ritual first thing she gets up. Shelby was like, maybe not be so consistent, but at least I have something that I can go to, right? You have your go-tos when you need them. So I want to ask you all, what advice would you give to me and to those that are watching in the community to better understand and support those who are living with mental health diagnosis, and how can we destigmatize it so that we can get help? We can create a safe space where people will go and get help.
I feel like a really big first thing should be believe people when they tell you that they have something. And then even if you go on to believe them, if you don't have that mental illness, don't try to compare yourself. Like if somebody has OCD and then you try to say like, oh, I do that, like I turn the light off twice or something, like, oh my God, you're making it worse. You're making them feel like they have to prove that they have a mental illness now, or that they're going to suppress it because maybe they don't really have it, and they start to doubt themselves and they won't really go to therapy because if they go to therapy now, they're afraid that the therapist will tell them they don't really have a mental illness and they're just making it up. So first step, like, just give people the space to say that they have something and then allow them to enact what they have.
Okay.
I like that.
Yes. Any other words of wisdom?
Go ahead, Jazz.
I knew it was coming. The first thing that I would like people to know is that, one, I agree with Shor. We all got something going on.
Yes.
And it's about time we start talking about it. Mm-hmm. It's about time we start, for our own well-being, for our growth. It's important that we know that there's safe spaces out there and you're not alone. You're literally not alone. Like, this is not a catchphrase. This is not a slogan. It's much healthier when you have a conversation with other people.
Yes.
And then you get, like, I had to learn that the hard way, where I'm sitting here trying to take care of all of my challenges by myself. If I can let anybody know, as soon as you open up and have a conversation, you realize that the world is not against you and it's not trying to beat just you up, and all these challenges, it's not just you, okay? So that's what I would like people to walk away with at a minimum.
Amen.
Yes.
I would say for right now, right this moment, that we are looking at coming out of seclusion for about a year. I want everyone to know that we are being oversynthesized when we walk out the door. So all of these fights that we're having in store lines, these shootings that are going on, and all of this, if all of us understood that our mental health right now is challenged, all of us are under stressors. We have not been around each other for a year. When we go out on the street, there's road rage, there's shopping cart rage. There's, we need to understand that we are the problem right now, that my sensors are overloaded. And before I look at you and say you are the problem, we need to look at ourselves and go, maybe I'm a bit overstimulated right now. Maybe I should back down instead of jumping into everything. So I think that they said some great things on what you should think of mental health. But for right now, all of us are over synthesized. We are overwhelmed with going out into the street, with seeing our friends, with having the barbecues, with all of this. And we are getting overwhelmed. We are drinking too much. We are smoking too much weed. And we are out there. And what we need to really remember, again, I'm just repeating, but I'll stop. What we really need to know is that we are the problem. When that altercation comes, look at yourself first, because then, half of these problems would not be in existence if we look at ourselves first. But instead of saying, oh, you did this to me. Oh, you did, come on now. Come on. Relax, breathe, do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Take those breaths.
I love it. I love it. Well, it has been such a pleasure and really educational and enlightening to talk to all of you. I so appreciate you being so willing to be transparent and just honest and real with the challenges that you face, how we can do better as a society, how we need to do better as a society, and just kind of starting that dialogue and that conversation, being willing to be the pioneers, to allow us to be able to talk about, like you said, everyone's short. Everyone at some point in your life, is going to have a mental health challenge. If you don't have an actual diagnosis, all of us. So we need to start having this conversation, especially in our community, and we need to create safe spaces for one another. So like Shelby said, when somebody opens up to you, you are there to believe them and to honor what they're saying, because they're taking a risk by, sharing their truth with you. So I just appreciate you so much. I appreciate your willingness, like I said, just to talk and to allow, those of us that, want to grow and want to learn and understand better. And two, you've given me some tools and some, things that I can start using. I'm going to steal some of the stuff you were sharing, Jazmine, about getting up and being, intentional. Seriously, getting up and being intentional and really focusing on, too, Shor, what you said about, physical and mental go hand in hand. So anytime I'm not feeling well, I'm going to now think about, where's my mental headspace, what am I thinking about, what's going on with me emotionally. So thank you all. Thank you, Shelby. Thank you, Shor. Thank you, Jazmine. I am so appreciative of you spending this time with me and speaking your truths and sharing your testimonials. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, for putting this out there. And I'm hoping that it goes to a broad audience of us, of BIPOC, so that we can see each other and see that, we're in this game together.
Absolutely. We need to be there to support and hold each other up. I would like to thank Jazmine, Shor, and Shelby for sharing their personal journeys and tips to help us all navigate towards mental wellness. I'd also like to end this episode with a quote by Russell Wilson. If we start being honest about our pain, our anger, and our shortcomings, instead of pretending they don't exist, then maybe we'll leave the world a better place than we found it. Thank you for tuning in to Black Facts. Together we can and we will improve our own health outcomes and that of our community for future generations. If you have any questions or suggestions for show topics for Black Facts, please be sure to email us at blackfacts@gmail.com, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Black Voice News. See you next time so we can know the facts.